Hi everyone, and welcome to the launch party for Plague: Shadow of the Rat King, the new comedy historical fantasy novel. This is actually the second time I've recorded this. We had a real live launch party on Sunday, which was great. We had a lot of fantastic guests and VIPs from the original musical. If you didn't know, this book was actually a musical first, and then I adapted it into a novel. I wrote the musical as well. But I was going to just post the live launch party online, but then I started to think, oh, it was Google Meet and everyone's faces were visible and there's privacy issues. So what I decided to do instead, because there were people who couldn't come to the launch party, maybe at the time, or also Facebook Live. I was trying to run it on Facebook Live at the same time, and Facebook Live completely let me down and got me trapped in a button pressing loop. And Facebook Live, great, not good. So I realized what I should do instead maybe is I will record the launch party again just as it was, but I will not have any guests except you, of course. So if you're watching this, you can now view the whole launch party, and I'll do it exactly the same way as it went down. But it should be a lot quicker without guests popping in and out, and obviously having conversations with them and so forth. So I'm sorry if you didn't see the other guests, but I realized it's not fair to kind of post them all over the internet. This is a better way. Right, so let's get going. So yeah, this is a novel that I have written, and it was based on a musical I wrote with David Massingham. The musical was written way back in 2000 and we finished it, I guess, kind of 2008. That was the first time we performed it in Edinburgh and London. And we left it for years. We both got busy. We had jobs, got married, had kids, etc. But I came back to it and I realized, it's a really good story, and I wanted more people to be able to experience the story of Plague, because I think it's a great story and it deserves a wider viewing than just, musicals. Musicals are hard to put on. It's expensive. It's a big production, so few people will ever see it. The musical did really well. It was an award-winning musical. It was given sellout status at the Edinburgh Fringe. It got various awards. So it did really well, and people loved it. But now I think, we can reach more people with the novel version. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Moving on to the next slide. So, I forgot there's a bit of Hollywood Oscar music. Whoa! Can I turn that off, maybe? I've forgotten how to turn it off. Let's just get rid of that, actually. Okay. So here's what's going to be happening today in the launch party. We're going to be taking a trip down memory lane about the musical and what happened there. I'm going to be doing a novel reading by the author. Sorry, that's my cat who wants me to play with her right now. Luna, do you want to come and say hello? No, you just want to play. But I can't play with you right now. I'll be doing a little novel reading later on. I'll be reading the first chapter of the book live. We're going to have a little quiz to see what you know about the historical period. And that lets me talk about some interesting things I learned about the novel. Sorry, things are binging up here. There will be an Ask the Author section, but there's no one here, so I'll be asking myself some questions. I'll try and remember the questions that the guests ask me, or often asked questions. Signed copy giveaways. We did do a kind of a lottery for a signed copy giveaway. What I did was I used the comment section and kind of just randomly chose someone from the comment section. We may be able to do that on Facebook, even though this is not live. We might put it in the comment section as a giveaway, so watch out for that. I'll post it on Facebook, Instagram, and so forth, and I'll do a random raffle based on the people who comment there. And Plague the Musical watch party, after party. Okay, so I have just posted on YouTube the full video of the 2008 production. Incredibly, even though I edited this back in 2009 or something, or 10, It hasn't been posted online until now, so this is the first time people can actually see the full award-winning 2008 production. Okay, but we may not have a full watch party here. I'll just give you the link and you can go and watch it yourself if you are interested. Okay, let's get going. So, a quick trip down memory lane. So I talked about this a little already, the musical. How did the musical come about? Okay, so when I was at Exeter University, before I went to Oxford, I was at Exeter studying English literature, and actually I studied law first for 2 years for my sins, then decided that I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I changed to the much more sensible option of English literature, which was really my first love. My great love all my life has been, reading and books and writing. So I don't know what came over me to be a lawyer. I guess I watched too much Ally McBeal, and that inspired me. But then I think I saw The Devil's Advocate, and that uninspired me. So I decided law was just not for me. The case law and the boredom of memorizing case law and dates, I think, just finished me off completely. So anyway, when I was studying it was either law or English literature at university, I was big part of my life there was taking part in drama productions, musicals. And they had a fantastic musical society, I'm sure they still do at Exeter, called the Footlights. They put on these really, I guess you'd call them pro-amateur, semi-pro productions. They had the Northcott Theatre, which was a nice big, professional theatre. They had big budgets because they were quite successful and they would get a lot of audience, so they had good ticket sales, and they were able to have this money to spend on productions each year. People took it really seriously. We had an amazing choreographers and directors and so forth. It was really done pretty seriously, even though it was a bunch of students. And I was in, I think it was Sweet Charity, and a bunch of us were sitting around a piano thinking up stupid names for musicals, and someone said, how about Plague the Musical, like a musical about the Great Plague of London, 1665. If you know this date, there was a terrible plague in 1665. Sorry, that's my cat playing with a red nose. In 1665, there was a terrible plague in London which wiped out a large slice of the population. The exact number is up for debate, but it was a lot more than COVID, put it that way. It was really terrible. And, we thought this might be a funny idea for a musical. How can you write a musical? Musicals are always pretty... Well, there's the tragic musicals like Les Mis or, maybe Phantom. But a lot of musicals are, at the end of the day, people are singing and dancing. So they're going to be kind of happy. How can you be happy in the middle of a terrible plague? That was the conceit. That was the joke. And we thought that was kind of funny. Then, a following year, but nothing happened with that yet. The following year, I was in Singing in the Rain with my co-writer, who you can see on the screen here, the bald-headed Lex Luthor-esque chap there, David Massingham. And he really liked this idea of doing Plague the Musical. And he happened to be a really talented pianist. Now, when I say he's talented, what I mean is he can literally just sit at a piano and make up songs on the fly, which to me is like some kind of voodoo magic. I'm good at writing. I can write lyrics for songs. I can occasionally even think up a tune and hum a tune, but I learned piano a little bit when I was young, but I cannot do anything like that. And yeah, he just sits there and music just comes out. It's amazing. So he was really interested in doing this, and we started actually writing down ideas and then actually writing a script, and it went from there. And we wrote a lot of it when we were together in university. Then we were in different places. We were in London and Bristol. We had to keep meeting when we could. And I was in Oxford then. He was in Bristol. I was in Oxford. We would meet when we could and get another scene done or work on a song. Later on, he was in New York and I was still in England, and we would finish it. We somehow managed to still finish things. Anyway, back in London, when we had finally finished it, 2008, we decided to put it on. first at the Questors Theatre in London and then at the Edinburgh Fringe for a month. Now, Edinburgh Fringe productions are scary things because they're expensive. At the time, Dave and I didn't have a lot of money. Dave was, I think, right up to the end anyway, was still working as like an IT support at a school. I was a poor beginning teacher. We didn't have a lot of money to our names. And I think we sank basically all our savings into this production. So it was like £10,000 each. That was all we had. So it was like £20,000. We provided accommodation for the actors. We had to, pay for sets. We had to pay for the theaters. Everything. It was expensive. And it's very scary because you don't know you're going to get that money back. You probably need to sort of have many nights sold out and have a reasonably full audience a lot of days just to make that money back. So it was very scary. The 2008 production, though, we were really lucky with the cast. We ran a good audition process, and we were very blessed with the quality of actors who applied. It may be because we were one of the few companies that was providing some kind of accommodation. A lot of other theatre companies would not have even been able to provide that because it would be too expensive. Often Edinburgh Fringe, the actors are not getting paid. They might have a profit share, so if a show does really well, they might get something, but they're not really getting any money. They're doing it for career promotion and to take part in the festival. But everyone's really, really poor. So bless the actors for giving us their time and effort. For not very much monetary reward anyway. But at least we were able to provide them with accommodation. That was, I think, our pro move there, because it meant we got a much higher quality of actors, and we were really, really blessed with that cast. They were fantastic, and we were spoiled for choice in the audition process. We had 5 great actors for every role, basically. It was really difficult to choose the best ones, but we did, and it went really well. Like I say, it did sell nearly enough seats. We had some nights where it was sold out. We had some nights it was only a few people. We had many nights where it was reasonably full enough, So there were like 30 performances. I mean, it was like six days a week for 4 weeks or something like that. It was pretty full on. So we actually ultimately made most of the money back. Dave recently told me we lost like £4,000. That's like 2,000 each, I guess. So that's not too bad. We made like 8,000 back out. We didn't lose all our savings, basically. And we saw other shows, even they were much bigger shows, bigger budgets, bigger auditoriums, and they like had just a few audience, and they must have lost huge amounts of money. So it was pretty brutal. It could be really dangerous and difficult. We had to spend money on advertising. We had to fly it every day in the streets. We also bought like a big ad in the free Fringe festival newspaper magazine listings, and that was like £1,000. But I think that was a really good investment. That really helped. You got a picture there and everything, so you stood out from the rest. Even though it was a very expensive investment. So I think we did okay in the marketing. Probably could have done better. This was at the beginning. Social media was just kind of in its infancy. There was Facebook, but we didn't really know how to use all of that yet. But we did okay. So that was a great success. Dave actually went on to do it again in 2010, but by this time I'd moved to Taiwan, so I wasn't so involved in that. It has also been performed a few times in the US and Germany, I think, and a few other places. So has been performed by various groups around the world a few times. So there you go. That's the musical. Right, moving on. Let's just watch. If you haven't seen the musical, let's just watch one song from the musical together. This is The Alchemist, whose arch enemy is The Undertaker. So it's kind of like life and death. and the alchemist wants to destroy the Undertaker. And the rather weird way he's going to do that is he wants to make everyone live forever. He wants to make the elixir of life. And if everyone's immortal and no one dies, then the Undertaker's job will be over because he'll have no one to bury, so he'll have no money. So he's helping everyone live forever, but he's kind of the villain. Okay, let's watch. Oops, and I pressed something wrong. No, it's gone wrong. Hang on a second. Let me go back. Right, here we go.
That cursed Undertaker has a lot to answer for. The death of my wife, and now the loss of my daughter. The time for dueling is over, and the time for revenge is at hand. I can't beat him. I will bury him. And in order to bury the Undertaker, I must bury his business. Now the time for childish jibes is over. My druids march now from Stonehenge. The time is up for that rotten Undertaker. The time has come now for revenge. Now I'll turn my power from simple transformations of elements most basic into gold. Instead I'll make now one single affirmation to pursue that Undertaker till I'm old. You brought me from Stonehenge, my worthy acolyte. Ah, yes, the philosopher's gnome. Well done, my faithful druids. With this gnome, I can make the one formula that can end death forever. The one formula that can destroy the Undertaker's livelihood. The elixir of life. Like a goo, he lives by others die. He even prospered from my wife. But now this fool will end his days a crying for the want of mortal life. When death is cheated, his business will wither. He'll be poor and lonesome in his strife. And all but him now will benefit forever from a sip of elixir of life. For the elixir of life will smite my enemy here. The elixir of life, oh yeah. The elixir of life, hail immortality. The elixir of life, oh yeah. Elixir, elixir, elixir of life. Elixir, elixir of life. Elixir, elixir, elixir of life. Elixir, elixir of life. Come dryads, come satyrs, invest this snow with your immortal power! As I smash this innocent looking garden ornament, its power will be divided into 1,000 shards, from which I will distill the perfect elixir of life. Oh, the elixir of life, oh yeah! The elixir of life, hail immortality. The elixir of life, oh yeah! The elixir of life will fight my enemy. The elixir of life, oh yeah! The elixir of life, hail immortality. The elixir of life. Hail immortality.
Rob, it still makes me laugh now. So that was really the showstopper of the musical. That was, you know, it was the third song, but that's when the audience really woke up and I think got, you know, on board with the show and loved the humor and so forth. Right, moving on. Oh, and you know, during the writing process. Hello. No, I don't want to play that again. During the writing process, um, many of the, you know, not many, several songs got cut due to length, or you know, we had problems with the songs. We thought they weren't good enough, or there was something. I'll talk about that more later. But yeah, here's a song that was cut, and you can see Dave here sending me a recording of Shenanigans, which was a song he wrote. Well, I think I probably came up with the name for it and maybe the tagline or the initial tune, and then Dave went and developed it. So I rather like Shenanigans. I regret that this was cut, but luckily I was able to restore it to the novel. So here is Shenanigans, played by Dave, a very young Dave when he still had hair, from his New York apartment.
Hello there, young Matthew, and welcome to my humble abode here in New York City. Right, for you today I'm going to play a little bit of Shenanigans, a fine song if ever there was one. Okay, this has got a bit of a Latino feel, you know, a bit of a rumba. I hope you'll enjoy it. Here it goes. Shenanigans, they all roll around me. They want to destroy me. They know who I am. Shenanigans, yes, the world has deceived me, but I won't be broken. I'll fight like a man. You could almost say, oh God, it made you God, it made. Ba-da-da-da-da.
So you can see there Dave's ability to just, yeah, improvise music. It's a wonderful thing to work with if you're writing a musical. Yeah, so I missed that song. So that song has actually been restored to the musical. That is the song of the alchemist when he's later in the Tower of London and he's feeling very sorry for himself. Anyway, just show you the process. Right, let's move on past Plague now. I think we've done enough Plague. The musicals. Let's talk about Plague, the novel. So, I decided, as I say, to make it into a novel. Here is the novel. Here's the star of the show. Sorry, this is an early proof copy, so it's got this line across it that says "Do not publish." And yeah, it's really thick as well because I decided to make the font quite big, like 12, and it's too big. The thing about Amazon, this is going to be printed on Amazon initially, maybe other places later. But every self-publishing printer, I'm sure every printer, they charge you by page number more than by page size. So actually, 6 inches by 9 seems to be the most economic size because it doesn't cost me more to make this book a little bit bigger, but it does cost me more to have more pages. And of course, if it costs me more, that means it's going to cost you guys more if you want to buy a paperback or hardback, because it's the print cost goes up. I have to raise the price to make any money at all. So what I've done is I've reduced the font size down to like an 11, a bit smaller, but still very readable. And yeah, I've also increased the book size a little bit, so it won't be as thick as this, the final version. And there is a hardback as well. Okay, so what inspirations went into this novel? Well, other authors that have inspired me, I have to mention C.J. Sampson, if you know his Dissolution, his Shard Lake series, which has been made into a TV show recently. His love of historical detail, he's like writing in the Tudor England period, actually sort of inspired me to do some actual historical research for Plague. When we wrote the original musical, we were not thinking about historical research. We were not trying to make it very realistic. We were just having fun. We, you know, in England, when you're in school, you're taught about the Great Plague of London. So we knew some stuff, but we really weren't going into much detail. But Plague, the novel, I really did a deep dive into historical research, and I'll talk about that more a bit later. But yeah, so it's a much more realistic and true to the period piece of work. And that was much inspired, much thanks to C.J. Sampson. Other inspirations, I must mention Jonathan Stroud, if you know especially his Bartimaeus books, The Amulet of Samarkand, and I've got another one here, I think. Oops, sorry, Plague. Oh, it's gone. Never mind. Yeah, the Golem's Eye here, which is the second book in their series. I love his playful style, his writing style, and his use of humorous footnotes. He kind of showed me how you can have fun as a writer, not be too serious in your style, and that is a big inspiration for me in my own writing style. And I think I have to mention Terry Pratchett. You know, that surreal sense of British humour, a surreal fantasy, and the character of Death. We also have the character of Death popping up in Plague as well. So yeah, I think I have to pay tribute to Sir Terry Pratchett. Sorry, I should have put Sir. He is a knight. And in terms of historical research, what did I do? I've got one here. I read a book about Old London Bridge. Now, Old London Bridge is fascinating to me because this was a bridge. It doesn't exist today, not in its current form. When I say London Bridge, people always think Tower Bridge, the one that lifts up, because that's now the more famous landmark. But that's not what this is, and that's not in the same place. Old London Bridge actually had buildings on it, quite large buildings, and people were living on the bridge. There were shops, and people lived there as well. It was residential. There is nothing like this in the world today. I guess that the closest thing I can think of is the Ponte Vecchio in Florence, which I've been to, which has a few shops and buildings on it, but that's nowhere near as big as Old London Bridge would have been. Old London Bridge was pretty big. So it would have been an amazing thing to see, and I kind of wish if we can rebuild the globe, can we rebuild Old London Bridge in London, please? It would be an amazing tourist attraction. Yeah, I wish they'd rebuild it because it's awesome. So this became the primary location for the book, and almost a character in and of itself. And this book by Patricia Pierce, it's all about the bridge and its history, and it had so many fantastic little stories and things that I had to include in Plague. So that was a big one for me. That helped me a lot. Another one, A Journal of the Plague Year by Daniel Defoe. Yes, that's Daniel Defoe of Robinson Crusoe fame. He was a writer, but also a diarist. And he wrote a living memory account. He was actually 5 in 1665 when the Great Plague happened. So he was too young to probably remember himself. But he, of course, would have been able to talk to lots of people who had survived the plague, who had living memory. So not quite a first-hand account, but pretty damn accurate. That was really useful for me, getting a clear idea of what exactly being there at that time was like. Okay, right, it's time for the novel reading. Right, I'm going to read you now the first chapter of Plague. Okay, let me just find it. Here we go. Prologue, Derry Way, London. Phil Ambery wasn't easy to follow. It was something about the way he walked, a kind of slouching, meandering, lugubrious saraband. His knowledge of London's byways was cyclopedic, which meant he often travelled in circles, a match for the best, worst, hackney carriage drivers. But he was being followed, all the same. Ambery was curious despite himself. These weren't your likely local footpads. The smell of death clung to Ambery like quicklime. The London Underground tended to avoid him like a disease. Not that Ambery didn't have enemies, of course. It was just that he'd already buried most of them. Personally. He ducked into a winding alley further along Eastcheap and peered back round the wall, trying to get a glimpse of his pursuers. For a moment, there was only shadow, and then he saw them. There were 2 of them, and they didn't move right, neither. A little too fast, a little too stop and stop, stealthy in a skitterish way. And there was something about their curious hats that kept the guttering torchlight out of their faces. Blanks. Anbury didn't exactly fear death. For one of his profession, it was a known quantity, measurable in feet and inches, garnished with a pat of dirt. Life was a hard pack of stacked cards, and the house always won. He had no problem with that. But as he machinated upon his third masterful metaphor in as many heartbeats, he tilted at a distant and vaguely windmilling memory of being gotten the better of, and of how much he despised the feeling, particularly when the bettering was by street slobs. No, that would not do at all. He slid his implement of choice out of his coat sleeve. It was only a trowel, its larger brother being too big for easy concealment. But as Jerry would say, it wasn't the size that counted, it was where you put it that mattered. He steadied his breathing, digging one boot into a mulched pudding in the gutter for added ballast, and raised the trowel high, and brought it down hard to connect with whoever, or whatever, or that-ever was coming round the corner. The trowel connected, lodged and stuck, held within one hirsute claw. Finely manicured nails, filed to a point, were caught by a stab of moonlight. "Not so fast, Gramps." Deep, accented, foreign, yet familiar. "We just want to talk." A second shadowy visage, smaller in stature, appeared around the wall's edge. "Easy now, Undertaker." A pinched voice, high, all nose and teeth. "Too much excitement ain't good for a feller of your years. Why, you could hurt yourself real bad. Ain't that right, Scratch fella?" "Real bad, Pinky." What was that accent? It was like nothing Phil had ever heard before. It was definitely in the direction of the Kings, but it had taken several awfully dark back alley shortcuts, and at least one oceanic detour to get there. Phil had done nothing to arrest the downward pressure of trowel towards hat brim, but the damn tool wasn't moving. His assailant was strong. When violence failed, only base speech remained.
"What do you want, then? Out with it. I don't have all night to bandy breath with gutter snipe."
The smaller of the two shadows bristled visibly. "Hey, Scratch fella, I think he's talking about yous." The larger shadow seemed to grow, though it was probably merely straightening.
"Hey, Pinky, maybe we ought to show him the third bank of the Thames."
The one called Pinky put his, or possibly her, hand on Scratch fella's free arm. "Yeah, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't, huh? Look, Ambery, I think we got off on the wrong paw." The trowel was suddenly released, the brute Scratch fella stepping back all too deftly, avoiding the final leg of the trowel's long-delayed descent. Phil grunted.
How do you know my name?"
Pinky leaned close, which did nothing to resolve its features, but did give the Undertaker a whiff of something obscenely fetid. "We knows lots about you, Ambery. More than you might think."
"We?"
"We represent the recently royaled King Under the River."
"The Merry Monarch has a lot of names. I don't really follow the—"
"Not that king. We's a-talking about the real muscle in these parts."
"The Gluteus Maximus."
No, Maximus. I'm talking about the main marsupial, the big cheese himself."
"Cheddar or Stilton?"
"Funny."
"Is my middle name."
"Look, our benefactor—"
"Never heard of him."
"But he's heard of you. In fact, he knows all about you, your assistant, and your little problem with the rent."
"There's no problem with the rent. I just can't afford to pay it."
"Exactly. And that's why we's a-heres. To help."
"I doubt that."
"Look, Phil, may I call you Phil?"
"No."
"Phil, what if we could make all your problems go away, huh? Rent paid, new trowel. You could fire your assistant at long last. Hire some real help. you'd be minted for life. And all we ask in return is a little information.
Fire my assistant. My, you do know how to toll a man's bell. What kind of information?
We're looking for some body. A dead body. You'll tell us where he's buried. We do the rest. What do you say?
Ah, grave robbers. I thought as much. I've dealt with scum like you before. Trinkets and trophies is all your kind is about.
Hey, we don't want no tin cats, Phil. This is more, how you say, personal.
Really? Exactly how? Porcelain.
Let's just say we got a bone to pick and leave it at that. Ambery chuckled dryly. A death rattle served over chilled venom. Seasoned veterans had been known to go into sympathetic labor at the sound.
You have a vendetta against a dead man. This I have to see. What are you going to do? Kill him again? Play fetch with his earthly remains? Urinograph his headstone? Go on then, give me the poor sod's name.
And so it was given. There was a long silence, broken only by a small fart of escaping air from the pudding underfoot. And then the undertaker was walking quickly, his breathing heavy, the final words of the two ne'ry-Jews ringing in his ears. Don't worry, Gramps. If you won't help us, we'll just find someone else who will. And there you go. That is Chapter 1, the prologue, really, of Plague, Shadow of the Rat King. Hope you enjoyed that. I did. There will be an audiobook, but it will be delayed a bit because I actually recorded the whole book and then I went back and listened to it like a month later. And although, you know, I can do the voices of the characters really well, I felt like for some reason when I first recorded the book, my narrator voice, I kind of tried to be really serious and deep, and it kind of limited my intonation. And I think I should have been more free, like I just read it just there, and it would have been much better. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to re-record the audiobook because I think it'll be better for you, and I'll let you know when that's released, basically. But sorry, there is no audiobook yet, even though the cover says audiobook available. That is my desire, and it will happen, but it's going to be a little bit later than I thought. So, sorry. If you're waiting for the audiobook, I totally understand. Right. Oh, here's where I have a favor to ask. Now, the thing about Amazon and selling your book there is obviously you need to get the book in front of people who might actually want to buy it. You know, people who might like to read this kind of book. And the key way that happens is through reviews, ratings and reviews. Amazon will not share the book with lots of people if it doesn't have many reviews. And you don't actually need that many reviews to make a big difference. You know, I've heard if you get anything close to like 100 reviews in the first month, you know, it's going to go do really well, basically. So it doesn't actually take that many reviews. Every single review is going to make a big difference to the book. What I'm going to beg of you is that some of you have already read it, maybe, because you were ARC readers, or I sent you a copy earlier. Some of you have yet to read it. But is it on the next? Yes. The book is actually for free at the moment. I'm doing a free promotion until this Friday, the 25th of July. So you can get a free digital copy. You can get a free Amazon Kindle copy online until Friday. So if you're interested in reading it, please go and grab your free copy. But all I ask in return is that when you finish, please do give me an honest review. If you hated it, that's okay. Tell me you hated it. You don't have to give it 5 stars or anything like that. Just an honest review is great. But please do give me a review. If you scroll to the very, very end of the book, you can then add a review. Or you can go onto Amazon and add a review there as well. And you can add a review even if you haven't bought a copy, because like I say, some of you have already read it from somewhere else. That would be absolutely awesome. Yeah. The price there, yeah, sorry, I took this screenshot a few days ago. It doesn't show that it's free, but it is free. to buy. If we go onto Amazon here, yeah, there it is. At the moment, it's $0 to buy, but that will only last until Friday, and it goes back to its normal price. The paperback and hardcover are also available, but they are obviously more expensive. Indie publishing is always a bit more expensive than mass market publishing. So, and I, most of that is actually either the print cost or it's going to Amazon. I only make a couple of dollars or pounds on each paperback or hardback. I'm not making a lot of money on those. By the time if I pay for some advertising as well, I'm going to make very little indeed. So I apologize for the high price of the paperback and the hardback. It looks a little high to me, but if I lowered it like even a few dollars more, I would literally be making zero, and Amazon would be making its money, but I would be making nothing at all. So I'm a little bit limited in how I can price that. But the good news is it's a bit different with the ebook. The ebook, I keep most of the money, and obviously I have a bit more flexibility there to lower the price and so forth. But the paperback and hardback, yeah, sorry, it's a little expensive, I know. Okay. They are quite good quality, though. I'm quite impressed by the quality. It's not bad, so that's the good news. Right, moving on. So yeah, please do get your free copy. Please do give me a review if you can. Right, we've got a little quiz now. This is quite fun. This also lets me talk about some different things in the book. Let's have a pub quiz. Okay, which monarch was on the throne in 1665, if you know anything about English London history? Was it Elizabeth I? Was it Charles I? Charles II? Or was it William of Orange? Now, in England right now, we have Charles III. So we are big on Charleses in England. Charles is a very nice English name. Okay, place your bets. Was it A, B, C, or D? And the answer is, in fact, C, Charles II. If you know a bit about history, Charles I actually had his head cut off. There was a revolution in England, and we didn't have a king for a while. So Charles I lost his head, and Charles II, his son, had to flee, had to run away and live in France and I think it was Holland as well for a while. But then the English decided they wanted their king back, and they invited him back. So he came back, and the monarchy was restored. So this period is sometimes called Restoration England because the monarchy was restored. And Charles II is a very interesting character. He was a bit of a playboy, quite, a ladies' man. But he also was, by the standards of the day, a little bit of a feminist, I suppose we could say. He allowed actresses to act on stage for the first time. Previously, actually under the Puritans, under Oliver Cromwell, there hadn't been much theatre because the Puritans thought it was immoral. But going back in time, girl parts had always been played by boy actors. So if you want to have Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, Juliet is going to be played by a boy. But Charles II changed that and allowed actresses to actually play themselves on stage for the first time. So that was a big step forward in some respects. Okay. Oh, and there he is. Oh, and by the way, a little fun factoid about Charles II. When I first saw this portrait, especially, I looked at it, I was like, that's me. That's my face. Now, it's not absolutely identical. He has a little dimple cleft in his chin. He has a better chin than me. I wish I had that cleft chin. But pretty much everything else, the mouth, the nose, the eyes, that's me. I look at that, I'm like, oh, wow. And this one particularly, this one most of all, that's just my face. I mean, that's just me. So I don't know if I have some royal blood in me, given how many girlfriends Charles II had. Probably every English person has some royal blood in him somewhere. But anyway, it's just interesting. I have the same face. Okay, moving on. Question 2. Oh, sorry. You didn't see the answer there. How could you catch the plague? So we've just recently had another kind of plague. We had COVID-19. Obviously, that was mostly, caught by through the air, coughing, sneezing, air droplets, possibly also from, touch, picking up the droplets, putting it in your mouth. But what about the plague? This, of course, is the Black Death reborn. touching victims, breathing air, flea bites, or all. Many of the guests at the show said flea bites because that's what we're all taught at school, that they were fleas. So this is quite different from COVID. This was a bacterial infection. It was not a virus. So yeah, fleas were biting people and they were biting animals, actually, sometimes infected animals, then biting people, and that's how they were catching the plague. That's what we were taught at school. But the answer, in fact, is all. And to my great surprise, when I was doing historical research, I realized the plague was not just one form, one disease. It was actually 3 different forms. There was bubonic plague, which made the buboes, the big sort of bumps, come out, which are famous. At this time, if you got plague, you often had these big bumps. But there was also septicemic plague, which was bloodborne. And so, yes, if you had a cut and you touched someone else and you got some blood on you, maybe from a dead body, you could catch it that way. Yes, the fleas were also a problem, and the bacteria is being spread that way. But it was also pneumonic plague as well. There was a pneumonic variety as well. So, yes, it was also in the air, potentially. So there were many ways to catch it, which is probably why it was so difficult to deal with at this time. We actually had it quite easy with COVID. COVID was not so varied. Very interesting. Okay, question 3. What were the symptoms? I just talked about some of this, but you probably will get this right now. Buboes, these bumps on your body, black patches under the skin, or a cough. Well, if you were paying attention just now, you probably can guess it is indeed all, because there were 3 different varieties. You could have any of these symptoms or all of them, I suppose. So that there were different symptoms, which must have also been very confusing. Why is this person coughing, but this person's got buboes? They're not consistent. That must have driven the doctors absolutely crazy. It just doesn't seem like a consistent disease. Well, it was 3 different varieties. Like I say, we had it lucky with COVID. Right, which was not a cure. Now, there were lots of crazy cures for the plague. Which of these was not one of them? So, having parties, being social, smelling a goat, a particularly foul-smelling goat, drinking powdered unicorn horn. That sounds like Chinese medicine, if you can find a unicorn, of course, or jumping on the spot. Well, the answer is actually jumping on the spot. Jumping on the spot might have been thought to be a cure for pregnancy, but not the others. Now, having parties, people did have parties. They thought maybe, it's better if we kind of are social and maybe we kind of catch a mild form of the plague. I guess people do that today with like immunity parties. Smelling a goat apparently was a thing. A really foul-smelling goat would drive away the disease. Unicorn horn, yes, mythical, but of course, how many unicorns can you find? I guess they were possibly rhinos and things like that. Rhino horn is a Chinese medicine today, of course. Anyway, yeah, D, no, not for the plague. Question 5. Which song was cut from the musical? Shenanigans, To Be or Not to Be, Blood Money. Okay. Well, again, if you were paying attention earlier, a lot of the guests said shenanigans, but actually the answer was all of the above. And just to tell you a funny story about this, so Shenanigans was cut, but that was mostly just for length. It wasn't a bad song. We liked that song. I really miss it, but it was just cut for length. There was also a To Be or Not to Be at one point, and it went like this, like, to be or not to be, it's the essence of poetry. And we were trying to do a song about being an actor in Shakespeare and stuff, but because if you don't know the story, sorry, I haven't talked much about the story. The story is about Clive Hucklefish, who is an actor, a wannabe actor, and he comes to London, and he finds that he can't get any acting roles because now that there are actresses, all of the roles he might have wanted to do, like the female roles, Juliet and Romeo and Juliet, they've all been taken by women. So he can't get a job as an actor. So he has to become an undertaker instead. So he's the main character. Anyway, To Be or Not to Be was supposed to be like an acting song, but we realized very quickly that, we just copied Lord of the Rings. That's the Lord of the Rings music. Bom, bom, ba bom, ba 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 bom, ba bom. That's Lord of the Rings. So that one had to go very quickly. Blood Money. Blood Money was a song where they were counting their money and enjoying. This is after the plague has started and the undertakers have got rich because, of course, now there's lots of bodies to bury. Blood Money was supposed to be a song about that, and it kind of went like, blood money, there's nothing in this world that comes for free. Blood money, it may be kind of tough or maybe kind of harsh or something like that, but it's the state of society. Blood money. Anyway, yeah, not a great song, and it wasn't really necessary, so we got rid of that one. So actually the answer is D. All of these songs were cut. But Shenanigans does survive in the novel. Question 6. Which historical figure used to wear a barbecue on their head? Solomon Eagle, Samuel Pepys, Nell Gwyn, or Sir Thomas Bloodworth? Okay, well, again, you'd have to be pretty good at your historical figures to know this. Samuel Pepys is the famous diarist. He wrote a diary at this time during the plague and also during the Great Fire of London, which is the subject of the sequel to this book. Nell Gwyn was a famous actress, very good actress. Well, I don't know if she was good, but she was popular. And she was also mistress to Charles II. Charles II does appear, and Nell Gwyn do appear in this novel briefly in a couple of scenes. Or Sir Thomas Bloodworth. Sir Thomas Bloodworth was one of 2 Lord Mayors during the plague because there was an election in the middle, so they had to change. He was the second mayor, and interesting story about him. In the original musical, we didn't really do historical research, so we didn't have an accurately named Lord Mayor. We called him something like Sir Fisher Price the Lesser. But the real one, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, in a musical, our mayor was a really not very good mayor. He just wants to blame other people. He wants to find someone to blame. The real mayor, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, was also a pretty awful mayor. Particularly in the Great Fire of London that follows, he really didn't know what to do. So we actually accidentally painted our mayor pretty accurately, even though we didn't do any historical research for the musical. So he was the Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth. Right, which means the only one left over is, of course, Solomon Eagle. And I got a picture of him, I think. Yeah, there he is. He was this really weird guy, kind of like a penitent or a flagellant. He would run around half naked, and he had these burning coals on his head. And he actually was a composer of music as well. So, yeah, I guess that was his side hustle while he wasn't just running around barbecuing stuff. But he survived the plague, so something worked. Maybe the burning fire and the smoke kept the fleas away or something. I don't know. He survived anyway, so they all credit to him. Question 7. Which real infamous London pub is renamed the Lousy Duck in the novel? The Red Lion, the King's Arms, the Bear, the Jolly Sailor. Yeah. Okay, so this is also a problem we created for ourselves by not doing historical research in the musical. We had a pub. We just made up a pub name, the Lousy Duck. And it was supposed to be a really dangerous and infamous pub. But there is no such pub in London called the Lousy Duck. So when I did the historical research, I needed to find a similar pub that was also, in the right place and infamous. And it was, in fact, the Bear. The Bear at Bridgeford was very similar to the Lousy Duck. So when I was writing the novel, I had a problem. I was like, do I call it the Bear or do I call it the Lousy Duck? And I'm a big believer in having my cake and eating it. So I did both, and I actually have the pub kind of renamed in the novel by a character, by Millie, by the mistress of the pub. She renames it the Lousy Duck to get at Jerry. You'll have to read the novel to find out why she renames it, but anyway. So I have it called The Bear and The Lousy Duck at different points in the novel. Question 8. What dangerous sport could be participated in at the Bear? Archery, horse riding, ducking for apples, poetry readings. Some people said poetry readings. I don't know. Maybe they thought I was being clever. I don't know how poetry readings can be dangerous. Depends how bad the poetry is, I suppose. The truth is actually archery. Now, we have darts in pubs now. We throw darts, which is, I suppose, a little bit dangerous if you're standing between the dart and the dartboard. But in the Bear, they had a beer garden, a courtyard, and they actually had full-on archery taking place there. So, I mean, the mix of drunk people, beer, and archery, yeah, I wonder how many fatalities they had from that. But anyway, it wasn't the safest place, the Bear. Question 9. What large animal often swam in the Thames near the Tower of London? A crocodile, a whale, a hippo, or a polar bear? I think some people knew this in the launch party. It is, in fact, a polar bear. The Tower of London had a tame polar bear, pet polar bear, who would swim in the Thames. So there you go. It's remarkable, but it's true. And question 10. Which character lives on London Bridge in the novel? The Undertaker, the Alchemist, Jerry, or the Pied Piper? Well, again, a little story about this. The answer is, in fact, B, the Alchemist. Again, lack of historical research. Dave's dad actually drew a picture of the Alchemist's house for us for the musical. We didn't have much scenery on stage, so we just projected the setting onto a projector. And he drew something that looked a lot like None Such House, which is a real building on London Bridge. I've got a picture of it here. There is None Such House. It is red, like the Alchemist's cloak. It does look like something foreign and mysterious, like a wizard's lair. So Dave's dad actually drew this based on None Such House, I think. And in the novel, yes, the Alchemist is living in None Such House. None Such House is an amazing part of London Bridge, my favourite part by far, because it is kind of mysterious. I could not find out who lived there or what its purpose was. I could not. It just seems to not be anywhere in history. It's not in this book. It's not online. I cannot find out who owned None Such House. So there's a little bit of a mystery there straight away. But also, this house was modular. It was actually constructed in Amsterdam, in Holland, and brought over in pieces and then slotted together. So there's no glue holding this together, this house. It was just slotted together. And it stayed together that way by pegs and so forth. So it's quite an interesting building in itself. But yeah, the perfect location for my bad guy, my alchemist, in the story, my wizard, if you like. Right, a chance to ask the author anything, except there's no one here but me. So I'm going to ask myself some questions. What did people ask me in the party? Someone asked me, when did I start writing this? I think... obviously, the musical was written, I don't know, we started in, when was that? Maybe 2022 or 2023, and we finished by 2028. I thought it took 7 years to write. Anyway, that would be 2001, though. Anyway, the novel, however, didn't get started until, I think I started it in 2019, but I didn't write very much, for just a few chapters, just kind of like to see if it would work, just like a trial. Then I was busy with work. COVID happened. I was also a father from 2018. My daughter was 2 then, I guess. So I was busy with her. So I didn't do much. And I think when work became a bit lighter, like 2022, 2023, I started working on it properly. But it's been slow. Probably took me about a year and a half to really write. But then I recorded the audiobook, which probably took another year. And yeah, I did various things, marketing. I went to some conferences and I tried to write some letters to some literary agents and things like that. So everything's been kind of a bit slow. I think for a lot of authors, your first book is slow. and I'm hoping the second one's going to be much, much faster because I've learned so much about how to do everything. Another question people might ask me is, why do did you want to publish with a publisher, or did you want to find an agent? Did you want to self-publish? I did toy with the idea of trying to find an agent. I went to a conference in New York where I actually met some agents. I wrote to some agents. I found like my favorite authors, like Jonathan Stroud's literary agent and so forth, and I wrote to them. But I have to be honest, my experience has been pretty negative, in the sense that most of them just don't even write back. The English literary agents were a bit better, maybe sending me a rejection, but you'd get the rejection like maybe 6 months later. The American ones didn't even bother to write back. Even a couple of the agents that I met at the conference, and I pitched them my book, and they said they wanted to see it. Now, they might have just been being nice. I don't know. Even they didn't reply. I think one of them replied like 6 months later or something. Now, it could be that my book is just awful and really, really bad. And I think, make a mistake. I originally called it Plague, the Novel of the Musical. And I guess, the musical's not so famous that would be an effective title. So I did change that. No one told me to change the title, but I figured that might have been a problem. So I guess the lack of feedback maybe was useful in some way. And I am happy that I've now called it Plague, Shadow of the Rat King, rather than Plague, Novel of the Musical. But, yeah, there's something wrong in this industry to me. If you're a literary agent, authors are your lifeblood. And I don't know what criteria they're using to choose. It might also be the fact that I have, at that time especially, I had like zero platform. I have a little bit more of a platform now, but it's still just starting. I don't have a lot of followers or anything like that. They may have researched me and said, this guy hasn't got a following. This is not going anywhere. This is not a sure bet. Yeah, they may have made a very good business decision, but it just still looks very unprofessional to me. If I was a literary agent, I would think I would feel duty bound to give some kind of feedback, some kind of letter, even if it's a rejection. Tell them a little bit why. Now, I know they get hundreds of submissions, and I know it's a lot to get through, but still, I would see that as the cost of doing business. And as I'm a teacher myself, I do have to, mark a lot of student work and give them a bit of feedback quickly. I think if you're not doing that, you're just not really looking after your customers, because at the end of the day, as a literary agent, if you don't have authors, you don't have anything. And you never know, this author, okay, maybe you didn't like their work this time, but you might like their next book. You have all these stories of people who turn down Harry Potter and others, and you just think, do they really know what they're doing? Plus, there's the whole slowness of it. Take any business where they take 6 months to reply to you. Something's wrong. I think you need to manage your business better than that. So to me, it looks like a business that doesn't really know what it's doing and is flailing a bit. I know a lot of publishers also, they kind of survive with a few bestsellers, but a lot of the books they print don't go anywhere. And here was the really big thing I learned, and I learned this from going to conferences and things. Even if you do have a literary agent and you do have a traditional publisher, they will not do a lot of marketing for you, certainly for your first novel, unless you're already a big hit. They're not going to help you much. And this was a real clincher for me. I thought, well, hang on a minute. So you're telling me if I'm a self-published author, I have to do my own marketing. But if I'm a traditionally published author, I also have to do my own marketing. But you're getting a big cut of my profits. That doesn't quite make sense to me. Something's wrong there. Now, actually, another thing is I have been published before. I've published some vocabulary books, grammar books in Taiwan. And let's just say my experience of that hasn't been entirely positive, hasn't been entirely negative either. But my experience of traditional publishers has been there are some publishers that work really, really fast and they'll get your book onto the market really quickly. And there's some publishers that are really, really slow. And it can take years for your book to ever be produced. I've also had publishers try to be sneaky with contracts and try to lower my royalties in clever ways, like making a new edition of the book, but it's actually the same book, and saying, "Oh, it's a new book, so we're going to lower." You've got like a stepped royalties, so you sell more books, you get a higher royalty, but they try to reset that count. I've also had publishers who, just don't know how to market a book or put a terrible, terrible cover on the front book, and that was another big, big one for me. I've been told very directly by someone who has experience of the publishing industry that you're not going to have control over your cover. They're going to choose the cover, not you. And that just makes me cringe, because a lot of covers these days are very minimalist. I don't think I've got even an example to show you here, but just like a symbol on the front. Very minimal, like wallpaper kind of design, graphic design. And I absolutely hate that. I like covers that are show me the character, show me the threat, show me the story a bit, give me a sense of the atmosphere, catch my eye. And that doesn't seem to be the trend right now. So the idea that a publisher would stick a horrible cover on my book, tell me I had to do that, had to accept that, I would lose authority, editorial control. They might tell me to change parts of the story I didn't want to. All of this is just giving me really bad vibes. So although I played a little bit with, shall I try and be traditionally published? I was making up my mind, and these things I learned along the way made me decide, no, I think it's really better if you do this yourself. And it might be harder in some ways. You've got to learn how to do marketing, and you've got to, pay for the cover yourself. But I have the control, and I'm not waiting years for someone to publish the book. I can publish it when I'm ready. I have full control, and I think that I'm now very, very happy with that decision. Even if the book doesn't do well, I would rather that it's my book that doesn't do well rather than something which has been, mauled by other people that then doesn't do well. And if it doesn't succeed with the publisher, it takes you years to get the rights back, and then you can try and do something with it yourself. It's just to me not worth it. If other authors have had great experiences with publishers, I'm sure there are great agents out there and great publishers that do a great job. I just haven't met them yet. But if you have, that's fantastic. Good for you. But I just feel like the industry is changing, and the industry is a little bit dying. And I would prefer to do it this way, I think. But that means it does rely on you, the readers, to support me, and I desperately need, say, your reviews. And obviously, if you can buy the book, fantastic. Remember, it is free until this Friday, July the 25th, 2025, of course. Right. I think that's probably enough of me answering possible questions. Will there be a sequel? Yes, there is a book 2 and a book 3 and a book 4 and a book 5. Possibly 5 books planned. But the next book will be about the Great Fire of London. So I have actually planned it all out in great detail. I know what the story is. I just need to start writing. But there are a couple of other books in different series that I want to publish first. So, I've got something else I need to do first. So I don't know when the next sequel will come out, but I'll do it as soon as I can. Right. Okay. Moving on. Signed copy giveaways. So what I will do is when I put this post on Facebook, I will choose someone randomly. I'll just scroll up and down without looking, and my cursor will land on someone in the comment section on the post. So if you want a free copy, say hi, say something about yourself, or say something about what you liked about the book so far, and we'll see if you might get a signed copy. I'll have to contact you and ask for your address. So we'll do that in the Facebook group. I've already got a signed copy going to someone who was in the VIP launch party the other day, so I would like to send one more book to someone in the comment section on this post. Okay, so please comment below, and you will maybe be up for a signed copy. And yeah, finally, if you would like to watch the whole musical, it is online. Just search for Plague the Musical, and you should find the full. Let's just test. Oh, no, not that one. So if you search for Plague the Musical, and you go down a bit, okay, there's a few videos above that because other people have done productions, but here it is. Yes, Plague the Musical, full show. There is the full show up there right now. Oh, it's already had 58 views. It's not bad for a few days. Okay, so yeah, you can watch the whole musical there. Okay, thank you very much for, if you've watched this far, that's amazing. It's ended up like an hour and something. It's been great having you, and if you want to ask me anything else, you can contact me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. You can search for Matt Townend, fantasy writer, Plague the Musical. You can also search for the book name as well, Plague: Shadow of the Rat King. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, sort of on Threads, though I don't use it that much. I'm on YouTube. Lots of places you can write me a comment or send me a message if you have any more questions. But please do go and get the book for free before this Friday. And if you missed that Friday, please consider buying the book, which would be even better. And whatever you do, please drop me a review. Literally every single review I get makes a massive difference to how far the book goes and spreads, and whether I can write more books in the future. Literally, if I get to 100 reviews, I think I'm sailing, basically. So yeah, your review, that's 1% of solving the marketing issue. And that would be fantastic. So again, thank you very much for your support. Thank you for being here, listening to me ramble to myself on a sunny afternoon in Taiwan with no one else here in a launch party. But it's been great. Thank you very much. Bye.